Today is the second day of the Asian Congress Conference, which is happening here in New Delhi, India. I'm going to talk about eco-anxiety. I'm very happy to be here and to be able to talk about eco-anxiety, which is a research that I have been doing for more than 6 months. The objective of my studies is to understand what is eco-anxiety, how the climate change affects people's mental health, if cognitive behavior therapy can help people and how. So, basically, eco-anxiety is a chronic fear of environmental catastrophe. So, it is the fear of the consequences that the climate change can bring to the world. We know that there is many kind of environmental catastrophe which can happen and then also can affect people's mental health. There is some studies which says that the prevalence for people who suffers with the climate change consequences is more than 50% of young people between 16 to 25 years old demonstrating shows concerned and stress about the climate change consequences. It is very important to let you know that eco-anxiety doesn't affect everybody, but the most people who tends to suffer with the symptoms of eco-anxiety is people who works in the front line helping people in an environmental catastrophe, activists, scientists, and then also people who depends from the natural resources to survive, such as fishermen, farmers, and also indigenous people. The symptoms of eco-anxiety could be obsessive thoughts about the future, what is going to happen in the future with the new generations, doubts. Some people start to think what's going to happen in the future in the new generations. Some people can develop a fear of anger, anguish, a feeling of depression, feeling of anxiety, and also grieving feelings. Some people can be very anxious with the government and angry because they may think that the government is not doing the best that they could to save and help the planet. Also, some people can get very guilty, can feel guilty because they may think they are not doing the best that they could to help the planet. So, it is also very important to let you know here that eco-anxiety is a new phenomenon which are happening around the world. So many people are getting very anxious about what's going to happen in the future with the planet, with all this pollution and climate change consequences. So eco-anxiety doesn't affect everybody. And then also, eco-anxiety is not considered a mental disorder, but its consequences can affect people's mental health. And also, it can deal from some kind of mental disorder like depression, anxiety, and then also feeling of grief and also suicide, according to the studies. So, thinking about all these things, how can you help as a therapist someone who may present this kind of symptoms, this kind of anxiety? It is very important to let you know here that it's very important for therapists to not to see this kind of anxiety as a mental disorder, but it is very important to build up strategy and how to help people who may be presenting these symptoms of eco-anxiety. So one of the objectives of my studies is understand how can the cognitive behavior therapy, how can the therapists be able to help someone? Which strategy they could help someone with this kind of problem? So, and also, that is very important to let you know also that there is no many studies going on about eco-anxiety. There is many people trying to understand more about how the climate change influences people's mental health. And then also, since 2010, the climate change has become to be a very big issue around the world. So many people since that started to do studies and trying to understand how the climate change affects people's mental health. So why did I decide to study this kind of subject? Because why? In Brazil, especially where I came from, there are many people showing a lot of concern, anxious about the climate change consequence. For example, with the high level of the sea, with the deforestation in Brazil, and then many kind of environmental catastrophes which are happening not only in Brazil but also around the world. So my question is how, and then seeing all this idea, I started to think, how can I do to help someone which may be presenting this kind of anxiety. So I decided to do this kind of research and trying to understand how the climate change affects people's mental health. So there is many studies going on, and also there is many studies which says that the climate change doesn't affect only the planet, but also it affects the mental health of the population, the people. So people, especially people who depends from the natural resource to survive, is getting very anxious about what's going to happen in the future. So we, as a therapist, must be prepared to understand what is this kind of anxiety, and then also how the climate change can affect people's mental health. And then also we need to understand more how can we help someone who may present this kind of symptoms. And then above all, it is very important to not to look at this kind of anxiety as a mental disorder, but also, according to the studies, it is very important to look to this kind of anxiety as an opportunity to change. So to build up more resilience, to build up more mindfulness. So yes, basically I will be presenting how cognitive behavior therapy can help people. Thank you very much to be here. I will be presenting more videos to you, and then also more interview for you, which is very important for the mental health. Thank you.